Hello, Trail Finders, and welcome back to today's video, the Salesforce Developer Journey. Today, we are going to talk about the access modifiers. What are they and how do we use them in our code? So let's first understand what are access modifiers. So access modifiers are of providing access to your class, methods, and variables. There are three types of access modifiers available in Apex. They are private, public, and protected. In most of the scenarios, you would use public or private. There's one more, which is called global. So let's talk about private. So private basically means, if you don't give any access modifier to any class, method, or your variable, by default, your compiler will give that particular class, method, or variable an access modifier, and that would be private. So by default, anything is private, and then you can open up access. What does private basically mean? Whatever that variable or whatever that method is, if it is private, it is only available within that class. Nobody else can, that particular variable or method is not accessible outside that particular class. If it is public, then that particular method is available outside the class as well. So you can use that method or that variable in another class as well. Protected basically means that method or the variable is visible to any inner class within the main class. So if you write a class within a class, then your protected method is available to the inner class, but not to the any other class. It's a little more protected is a little higher than private, but most generally what I've seen in Salesforce is people either use private or public or global. Let's talk about what global is. So basically global means like this, so any method or variable or class that you define with global access it is not just used by within the same organization. It can be used like, so let's say you're doing an integration and you are integrating Salesforce with, let's say, any other tool. Let's say you're integrating Salesforce with YouTube. Then this particular class, which is global, can be accessed from YouTube onto Salesforce. Right. So obviously you need authentication and everything, but then you can still access global classes from there. That is the idea behind private, public, and global. So now if you differentiate between these three, so private, whatever the methods or class variables are, they are just visible and accessible within that class. Public means they are accessible within that Salesforce instance. So any other class or flow can call that particular Apex method or variable. If it is global, that particular class or method or variable can be accessed by a tool, any other application which is trying to integrate with Salesforce. I hope these three accesses would have made some clarity in your understanding. Let's talk about wrapper classes or inner classes. So what is a wrapper class? Wrapper class are very, very important when you would create an LWC or an Aura component or a Visual Force component. So Visual Force component was the first one when Salesforce started, and then when Lightning came, so we migrated to Aura components, and the latest one, how you build a UI in Salesforce, is called Lightning Web Component. We'll talk about that when we complete our Apex journey in this developer series. For now, just understand that wrapper class or inner class is mostly required when you would be creating an LWC component. So it is basically a class within a class, and it is used to wrap data together. So let's say you want to show account information and contact information in a single row, but account is a separate object and contact is a separate object. So what you will do is you will query using a parent-child or a child-to-parent query. We'll talk about what are those. So basically you will try to get the contacts and accounts together in a single list, and then you would try to flatten, because basically one account can have multiple contacts. So then you want to show account against all of these contacts and some of the fields of those account against this contact. So that's basically, you would do a wrapper class and flatten this whole data. So basically account and the associated fields and contact and associated fields all together in the same row. And then you combine all of this data together in a wrapper class. That's the idea of having a wrapper class. I'll quickly show you how we write a wrapper class in developer console, and we'll also see the access modifiers here. I've been telling you a lot that for now, just understand this is how you write a class. So, but basically public here means that this class is public and it is accessible within the Salesforce instance, right? So whatever your class is, your variables and methods cannot go with the higher access level of your class. So you cannot make a global variable inside a public class. You cannot make a public variable inside a private class. So if I show you, let's say if I write global void method here, and if I try to save it, this would give me an error. See, you see problem here? Defining type for global methods must be declared as global. Now, if you can do global here, if you want to make this particular class accessible from outside Salesforce as well for your integrations, then you do global. Otherwise, you do public here, right? Either way works, right? So same way you can write private here, protected here, public or global here. Most likely you will not be using protected. You would use private, public and global in your Salesforce day-to-day programming. So I was trying to show you the wrapper class now. So public class, and we'll call it wrapper. So you can give any name. Generally, for a wrapper class, you would give that class name as wrapper, and then you would do a string. So you can create any variable of any data type within that particular class. So let's say we call it class string name, and then let's do integer, and let's call it roll number. And then you can have multiple values inside, multiple variables inside this wrapper. And then in your method or in any other class, you can use this wrapper. So something like this, you can create a variable of wrapper, something like this, in the same way. So this is also called an instance of wrapper. And then you can call this particular variable like this. So it would be class name dot the variable name, and now you can assign a value, something like this. This is the way how you would access using dot. You can access the method and variables of a particular class. So these are called behaviors as well. So in order to access name from wrapper, you need to create an instance of wrapper, and then you use dot name. So there's one more very important keyword, as we would call it in Salesforce, and that is called static. So static basically means that any method or variable that you would have written in your Apex class, that method or variable would be available throughout the execution of your code. So if you create a static method or static variable, that is available throughout the execution. If it is public, then any other class can also use it. So I'll quickly show you. Let's go back to the code which we were writing. So in this place, if I make this variable, this method static, what we have been doing in all our methods so far. So static basically means that this method would stay in the memory and would be available throughout the code execution. Now there's a slight difference when you call static method compared to any other method. So if we have two methods here, one is public void method 2, and then the first one is your static method. So the difference between these two is, so for static method, you can call them just like this from your execute anonymous window. For a normal method, which is a non-static method, what you need to do is you need to create a variable. So basically you create an instance of the class, and then using the instance of the class, you call that particular, you call the method 2 here. So basically that's the difference between these two. For static, you don't need to create an instance. You can call it directly. If you need to create, if your method is non-static, then you need to create an instance for it. I hope make it clear as to why we use public, static, and void against all of these, when we write our classes and methods. In the upcoming videos, we'll deep dive more into code and see how you write more complex business logic in Salesforce. I hope I've made this clear to you. If you have any questions, reach out to me on thetrailmaker.com. There's a weekly session, which is free. You can join that session. You can book it on my website based on the time that you would like to have a session with me. And happy to discuss any of your questions, any of your